Hello everybody, my name is Elizabeth Taylor and I work at TPAS Cymru. Today we are here with our guest speaker, Dr Steffan Evans. Welcome Steffan. Steffan is a Policy and Research Officer at the Bevan Foundation, which is Wales's most influential think tank, who are working to find solutions to poverty and inequality in Wales. Thank you so much for being here today, Steffan. The work that you guys are doing is so important, and the research that you've done is truly brilliant. And on a personal and professional level, I want to thank you for your commitment to making a positive change for people in poverty. So, hello and welcome. Can you tell me a little bit about the research that you've been doing around Welsh benefits?
Yeah, well, hello everyone, and thanks for the invite to talk to you today. So yeah, the work we've been doing around Welsh benefits, it's been a project that's been going on for about 18 months really, but it's kind of come to its kind of climax at the moment now. So we finally published our final report on it. And what the work has done is to look at the series of different support schemes that the Welsh Government provide people on low income to supplement the support they can get through the UK social security system. So the sort of things we're talking about here is free school meals, the council tax reduction scheme, kind of a lot of these schemes that you'll be very familiar with. So these are schemes that either run or administered by Welsh Government or by Welsh local authorities. And what we've been doing with the project is to consider, are these schemes working as well as they could? Is there something more we can do with them to make it a more effective system for helping people in poverty? And that's why we've come out and recommended that we establish a Welsh benefit system to pull all these schemes together and to make them work better for people. And I'm sure we'll have time to go into kind of why we've done the work and kind of some recommendations kind of specifically as well.
So in terms of council tax reduction that you mentioned, is that all the same as like free school meals? Like, if you're on council tax reduction, do you automatically get free school meals?
So that's one of the big issues we uncovered through this work, is that because these schemes are viewed as independent solutions to specific problems they've developed over time, well actually over a century, if you think of free school meals, it goes back well into the early 1900s. They're not viewed as this part of this one system. So in many instances, you're having to apply separately for loads of schemes that are basically kind of for the same people. There are some kind of examples of good practice on this, where there are some local authorities who have, been aware of that, have kind of set up systems where if you apply for council tax reduction scheme, for example, they will check, right, if you're eligible for that, do they have any children living there? If so, they're probably eligible for free school meals, so we'll make sure that they can get that, etc.
Do they just give them that?
Say again, sorry.
They just give them the free school meals, or do they have to like tick a box? Or
so, and there's different approaches here again across Wales. There are some where it's all done automatically, so you're passported from one benefit to another. There are some local authority areas in Wales where maybe the school ones are matched up. So free school meals and the pupil development grant access. So that's the school uniform grant, people may be familiar with. There will be some authorities where you tick a box when you apply for free school meals. Do you want to be considered for the uniform grant? Yes, and you get it. And there are still some local authorities where you are having to apply for everything separately every time, which makes it far more difficult for people to get through and get that process done and make sure they get absolutely everything they need and are entitled to.
And I know that in terms of like COVID and people not having like their normal free school meals that they would have got, what's happened then?
So COVID-19 has really emphasised, we think, kind of the important roles these schemes play. To put kind of the value of the support into context, Welsh Government spends about £400 million on these different schemes every year. That's the same amount of money as what the UK government spends on universal credit and job seekers allowance in Wales every year. So, it's a huge amount of money that we're spending on these schemes for, which and for quite hard to figure out how effective they are. And COVID-19 has really emphasised how important they are, because we've seen changes made to these schemes, and free school meals is a good example of that, to make them more effective. So with free school meals, as we went into lockdown, schools were shut in, we, working with other organisations, lobbied really hard to make sure that families were getting support instead of the meal they would have been having in school. And what we saw in 17 out of 22 local authority areas in Wales was families were getting cash instead of the food they would have been having in school. That support was also extended over the summer holidays as well, which was really, really good and really important. That's something we've been talking about for quite some time. Can we set up something like that?
That's brilliant.
And we've also, some indications that some more authorities were moving to a system where if you apply for one support scheme, they'll automatically give you anything else. And as a result of all of those changes, we saw the number of children who were taking up their entitlement to free school meals increase by about a third. So we went up from about mid 60,000s, 65, 66,000 children who were getting a free school meal every day, to over 90,000. And the reason for that was partly because more people, had lost their jobs, had lost income on furlough, so were eligible for free school meals. But also, and by far the biggest group, were people who had previously been eligible, but just weren't taking it because of stigma or application processes. A lot of those barriers were taken down throughout that period.
Well, I think that shows that there's obviously differences in perceptions. Obviously people taking up free school meals during this time, there could be other reasons for it, couldn't there, apart from the fact that people are losing their jobs, things around perception, how people deem getting school meals.
Absolutely. And in terms of that is something where it's obviously negative that so many more people are now having to rely on benefits due to the expected rise in unemployment. So the number of people claiming out of work benefits in Wales has doubled since the start of the year. So that's clearly not a positive thing, but maybe something good that could come out of that is maybe a change in perceptions about what the social security system is there for. It should be there for everyone, as a safety net for everyone. It's not kind of this stuff we've seen in the tabloids for years about scroungers and all of that stuff. That's not what that's not what it's there for. It's there to help people, and people need that help. So if we can change that perception, I think that would be something positive to come out of the last few months.
Definitely. And you've mentioned within the study that there were key features to a proposed Welsh benefit system. There was 5 of them, and they'll ensure that people who are getting the support are the right people to be getting the support. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so we, through our work, probably found 4 major weaknesses with the current system, we think. So firstly, the eligibility criteria for these schemes are not always adequate. So to talk of free school meals, to be eligible for free school meals, if you're on universal credit, the amount of money you earn through work has to be less than £7,400 a year, which means that pre-pandemic, there was over 50,000 kids in Wales who were living in poverty who weren't getting support, and there were examples of this all over the place. So that was one big weakness which we wanted to address when thinking of kind of this design of the system. A second one.
How much was that amount? Sorry, 7,000.
£7,400. So Welsh government would argue, well, you also get your benefits on top of that. So that's a very low threshold, for people who are working, who are doing the right thing, if you like, if you want to use that language, but who aren't getting the support they need. Then linked to that, and something we've already touched on, is the fact that you had to apply for loads of different places to get all the support you need. That makes life complicated. We wanted to fix that and tidy that up. And a third concern we had was that the value of the support isn't always enough. So we've seen a rise in people who aren't getting a full exemption from council tax through the council tax reduction scheme. People who are getting just some money off rather than the full amount off. A really good example of where the value of the support really isn't fit for purpose is around the education maintenance allowance. So EMA, people might be familiar with, available for 16 to 18-year-olds continuing in education. Now, that's
still the same amount that it was when I was at college.
Exactly. So that stands at £30 now. It was £30 15 years ago. So if that would have raised up with inflation, that would be £45 a week. So that's a huge difference, every week in terms of how much money people have. So that was another problem. And then the fourth one was not everything's covered. People have loads of different issues that were falling outside the system. So we wanted to use this as an opportunity to maybe design some principles, and you mentioned kind of the 5 principles there to kind of really design a system that works for people. So firstly, we thought that the system should be focusing on people on low incomes, and by that we mean, universal credit. To be entitled to universal credit, the state has decided you need support. Your income is low enough to need some extra support to top up, so you've got enough money. Why then are we putting extra requirements on top of that to people? We just don't think that's right. We think that having similar eligibility criteria across the board that set along universal credit lines would create a fairer system. A byproduct of that as well is that it would make it far easier for people to get access to schemes, because if they're all got the same eligibility criteria, there's far less admin to be done, to move someone over from, oh, this is slightly different. So that was something we thought was really important. Secondly, we thought it was important that any schemes through the Welsh Benefit System provides cash or in-kind help. So that's kind of based on what we've already got, but we think that's important to retain that.
Yeah.
A single point of access, obviously, so as I've already touched, and also we think it's important, and I know this is something that TPAS have done a lot of work on in the past as well, is about that single point of access needs to be multi-channel, depends on what people want, so not digital only, it needs to also be available by post or by phone, because people have different needs, different challenges, so it needs to be across those levels.
Accessible for everybody, yeah.
Exactly. And then the final 2 ones was around eligibility. We think should be based on an entitlement basis, not discretion. So a lot of these schemes, discretionary housing payments is an obvious one in the housing context, or the discretionary assistance fund, the DAF, and they're all based on, because they're based on discretion, it's hard for people to know, am I eligible for this or not? So that deters people from getting support. There's real big problems with the DHP system about, if you apply for support kind of towards the end of the financial year, you seem far more likely, anecdotally anyway, to be getting that cash in your pocket than you would be if you were earlier in the year. So moving towards a rights-based system where, yes, you are entitled to that, we think would be positive. Which links to our last principle then, that everyone should be treated with dignity and respect. That should be vital. Yeah.
Absolutely. Love that. And obviously anything that we can do to help with that, please let us know. Is there anything that the housing sector as a whole, or tenants, landlords could help, people could help you, support you with this?
I think there's a few levels. The more people we get endorsing or supporting us, saying out loud that, yeah, they think these proposals sounds positive, sounds sensible, the more consensus we can build around this, the better, I think, going forward. And I think there's also maybe some stuff maybe that the sector could look at to think about, could we try and do some of this now? So I know lots of housing associations, for example, have benefits advice teams who help people get everything they need. So, is there something there that we can think about? Are we including all of these different schemes as part of this? There is a tendency maybe within the system, and housing is not unique in this, it applies across the board, where we're very good at giving people advice on the stuff we know about. So if you come to someone with a housing problem, housing providers are often very, very good at giving advice on the housing related stuff. But maybe, are we remembering free school meals, for example, as part of that conversation? And the same could be said about people who go to local authorities for advice, around the education stuff. So housing is not unique in that, but if we start operating that way ourselves within the sector, it creates that best practice again, that puts that pressure and tries to move that conversation on as well.
And I think for me, it's like the groups as well that this impacts on. So like from when I worked previously with young carers, their EMA, that £30 a week, would actually help support their family. Like the money wasn't going for them for like spending money, it was going to help buy shopping and things like that. So for me, like that's super important. And I know there's obviously charities out there like Child Poverty Action Group doing like a school program that they're trying to get people to look at the way policies are in school, like on school uniform and things, to try and minimize poverty. So I think it's worth kind of engaging with different charities as well, to help this situation.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, the more we get people working together, you know, kind of the better. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you so much. I'm going to put the links to the report in this video when we're sharing it, so that people can have a look at that and have a look at the summary, look at ways that you can implement this within your housing association, or tenants can maybe get involved in research and things like that. So yeah, thank you. I actually have a quick fire questions that I would like to ask. You don't have to answer them, but it's just because I feel that during this pandemic, we've all been craving this kind of personal connection. And I think we get so dangerously close to dehumanizing academics and leaders as just thinking machines instead of actual real people. So they're quite easy questions. I don't know, some might be a bit hard. It's up to you. Do you want to answer them or not?
Yeah, go on, let's give it a go.
Great,
Yeah.
fab. We've only got 2 minutes, so we'll go through it as quick as we can. Number one, fill in the blank. Poverty is
Unacceptable.
Yeah. Good, I agree. Number two, what is often something people get wrong about you?
I don't know. I think I'm quite easy to read, to be honest, so I don't think there's anything. Yeah, no. Well, I did the government career test this morning, and it said I should be a professional footballer, so maybe that's something that someone's got wrong about me.
Okay.
They've obviously never seen me play.
Okay, what was the last show you binge watched on TV or Netflix?
Oh, the one I'm currently going through is the Great American Barbecue Showdown, which is as ridiculous and trashy as you.
Worth a watch.
Yeah, it's great fun. It's if you want something you don't have to depress yourself about in the current environment. Yeah, it's good light relief.
Favorite film of all time?
Oh, that's a tough question.
It is so many.
I'll say the last one I saw. That's the cop out, isn't it? I watched Black Klansman on Netflix last weekend. That was quite good. Yeah.
And what have you found most difficult during this pandemic?
I think it's that the human interaction stuff, isn't it? I think that applies for everyone, you know, in terms of being able to easily, you know, not pop to the pub or pop around someone's house.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, that's certainly the thing. And it's, you know, yeah, that sense maybe at the moment we've all got as well, that we were maybe going forward, but that might not be the case now for this winter. You know, that's quite, you know, that has been a bit of a sucker punch recently, hasn't it? But that's true.
I think there's a lot to be said for physical human connection. Like, it's definitely been noticeable for everyone I speak to. And finally, one thing you are grateful for right now.
I guess a lot to be grateful for, but I guess, yeah, that, you know, at this time when we all have to be at home, you know, that, you know, I'm lucky to, you know, have a home with my partner that's a nice home and stuff, but we can, you know, we've got a spare bedroom, so I've set up a camping table in the spare bedroom as an office. You know, she can work downstairs then, so we've got a bit of space and stuff. So yeah, that is something I'm very grateful for.
Grateful for your home. Me too. Well, thank you so much, Steffan. I really appreciate your time, and yeah, we'll see you soon.
Lovely, thank you.